Donald Trump went on GB News to talk to a friend of ours, which is Lawrence Fox. He's actually appeared on the podcast before. And what he says about the UK is very important, as it seems likely he's going to be the Republican candidate for 2024, especially considering some of the stuff that he actually says in this interview, which we'll be going over. So, obviously, the UK under the Biden regime has been somewhat scorned, and therefore a return to favour in the United States would probably be a very nice thing. And I think that Trump would be far more receptive to those sorts of issues, as he's said before, for example, that he's more receptive to having a trade deal with Britain, and Biden doesn't seem too interested about that. So
actively trying to stop it. So,
yes,
yeah,
he's trying to undermine this. So it seems that the future of UK politics is inextricably linked with Donald Trump. So what he says about Britain is very important. So here is the interview on YouTube. I advise, once you've watched this, to watch the full thing. It's titled World Exclusive, Donald Trump calls Boris Johnson woke as he defends Liz Truss over taxes. But don't worry, we'll be getting to that. But yes, definitely check it out. Great interview. I can see you smiling about that title already.
I'm excited. Mm-hmm. I just love the idea as well. World exclusive. Like, sorry. I know it's traditional, like it's what people do in the media, but it always makes me laugh. The idea that YouTubers are clickbait, it's like, no, there's way worse out there. It's just traditional media fakes, which, well, I mean, it's not a criticism, it is what it is. It's just funny.
It is an interview which only they have. I mean, it's not unfair to say it. But anyway, let's move on to the first clip where he's giving advice to Liz Truss. And
what advice would you give to our new Prime Minister who is having trouble to stem this flow of illegal immigration? What would you say to her?
Well, I like some of the things she's done, and she seems very nice, very good. But I like some of the things. You know, it's inverse. A lot of times finance is inverse. I cut taxes very substantially, and we did much more business. And she's done that. And I know she's taken some hits for it, which surprises me, actually. But it could be at the end of the year, you'll do bigger revenues. It's going to be very interesting. What she did is very inverse to what some people thought. But that doesn't mean they were right. I have a feeling she might be right. But I think very highly of her. And she had a great send-off from the Queen. That was the last one of the Queen's send-offs.
So obviously she did a U-turn on the top rate of tax after she got that criticism, which I think Trump must have either missed or this must have been recorded beforehand.
I think it's just American. You see the bit where he says, I was surprised by that. The idea that they cut taxes and everyone was upset. And of course, America would be like, what? It doesn't make any sense. And in Britain, I agree. I also don't believe it makes any sense, but much of this country has been, taught the idea that taxes should be high because that pays for the holy NHS, and therefore we should have a 45% highest income tax. It's like, didn't have this until Gordon Brown.
Yeah.
Didn't need it before, but whatever.
And did you notice just how nice he was being about Liz Truss? Don't you think that that's perhaps a bit nicer than she deserves? Do you think maybe that's indicative of, say, his intention to run in 2024?
Yeah, sure. He's nice about every incumbent leader until they piss him off. So, because that's the diplomatic thing to do as well.
Of course. He's actually very tactful throughout this. You can tell that he's really considered what he's going to say about these things and how to present it in the best possible light. Speaking of which, let's listen to his opinion on the new king. King Charles.
Can I ask you on the subject of the royalty? Prince Charles, who has been famously outspoken on this very, the green woke agenda, but the Green New Deal for England and environmentalism. What do you make of him? Do you think he's going to carry on that into his reign, or do you think he should keep his mouth closed on these issues?
Well, I think he'll be different. Now, I know him very well, or quite well, and I spent a lot of time when I was over there as president with him and with his wife, who was absolutely lovely, by the way. And we had a good time together. And so I'm a little prejudiced when I say it, but, he has a strong view on things. Probably difficult when you're the king. You want to have 100% of the people love you, like the Queen did. The Queen had everybody loved her, right? She didn't have that kind of an agenda, and yet, she was a very strong woman. I got to know her too. She was a very strong woman, a great woman. I think Charles is going to do very well. I think he's got a great way about him. I thought he looked very good during the ceremony. Not an easy thing to do, but I think Charles is going to do very well. I think he'll probably keep it where it's politically a little bit, because he feels very strong about certain things, and not everybody agrees with that. I think he'll probably not discuss certain elements of what he believes 100%.
Seems like a perfectly reasonable opinion, although he's obviously very positive, as he always has been, about the royal family.
Well, if you're an American president, you're saying negative of the royal family.
Yeah.
That's just a given rule.
But he always brings up his Scottish mother and how much she loved the royals, and I think he sees it as somewhat of an inheritance from that. He sees his heritage there, and therefore he has somewhat of a duty, because he goes above and beyond what a president is obligated to say, I think.
Sure. I also love how he knows everyone very well. It's just like, yeah, I met him, I know him very well. It's just like, oh, do you? It's just like everyone else.
But yeah,
just mannerisms I like. They're
that
funny.
part was quite unsurprising, really, but it's nice to hear that he's got both positive opinions about our current Prime Minister and our current monarch. That's the two figureheads of the country. So moving on to something a bit more specific, he gets asked about China and our relationship in terms of technology to them.
In the UK today, it has been announced that the two biggest phone networks, Vodafone and Chinese-owned Three, are in talks to merge. Do you think the UK should push back against Chinese influence, specifically in the technology area?
Well, when I was in charge of the U.S., I did not want to make a deal with China, and didn't, having to do with the phone systems, and Huawei was willing to do a deal. But everybody that I spoke to, and some of these people were really good, say that if they do that, they can absolutely spy on our country. In other words, you're giving up tremendous security. It was a big security concern. And I dealt with really good people. These were not woke people in the military. These were the real deal. And they really said, we lose a lot. There's a potential to lose a lot having to do with security. And you understand that. So I chose not to do that. I didn't know that you were going the way of doing it, but I chose not to do it.
That seems, again, a very reasonable point, and also he was saying it in a very diplomatic way again. It seems like he's gained a little bit more media savvy in the past 4 years, in that he said he's not advising the UK to say, I think you should do this. He's saying, well, this is what I did.
Here's the obvious reason why you should do it. Up to you if you want to be an idiot, I guess, which he's right on this issue.
But
also,
it's probably... Sorry.
I just love how now you also have to point out, like, I spoke to the military. Not the mentally ill ones, but the real ones.
But yeah, he's said it in such a tactful way. And I know it's something that people don't often associate with Donald Trump, but actually, throughout this entire interview, he handles himself very, very well, and hopefully that's going to translate well in his American politics as well. Speaking of which, this next clip seems to suggest that he has every intention of running. This is the strongest suggestion that he's going to run in 2024 I've heard so far.
Just one final question. If I promise to play you in the movie Trump 2024, will you run for president again?
Oh, I think I'd have to consider that strongly. You would be great. I have a face like that and a voice like that. I would be thrilled to have you. And I'll be letting that out pretty soon. You know, a lot of people want me to do it. The polls are all very strong and all that, stronger than they've ever been, which is incredible. But they see all the bad things that are happening. Even the relationship with your country. You know, we had a great trade deal all set to go, and that doesn't get done when I'm not there. So, you know, I mean, it really worked.
So, obviously, the part about him joking about playing him in a film, ignore that part. But the part where he's saying, well, the polling's good and things don't get done when I'm not there, that's kind of indicating that, yeah, I know there are plenty of reasons that I should be doing this, but he didn't say no.
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret he's running.
Yes. It's pretty explicit at this point. He all but said, yes, I'm definitely going to run. So that's at least something. And the final clip I'm going to show is how to make England great again, according to Trump.
We need you to help give us advice on how do we make England great again?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because Boris was a friend of mine and perhaps still is. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but Boris was a friend, and I think the biggest problem Boris has is he went liberal all of a sudden. He went to the other side, and I think that was just crazy because he's a good man, but something happened to him. He changed, and he went for the windmills all over the place, and he went for he went a little bit wokier than I believe he really is, and I think ultimately that was the thing that really got him out. I don't believe it was the party. I think the party was just an excuse. But he's a good guy, but he changed. He was a conservative guy, and he became much less than conservative, and I think a lot of people didn't like it. They didn't like it.
Yeah, right on the money.
Absolutely.
I really hate the narrative that it was just, it was the party. Gay bollocks. It's like, yeah, that is the final straw that killed him. But he would have been fine if he had a nice, cushy base of MPs and supporters who were like, no, we're going to keep supporting him. I don't care because he does all the conservative things that I want to get done.
You don't have an internal revolt within the party unless you annoy people within the party.
But it's the fact that he had nothing to fall back on. There was no conservative support for him because he hadn't done anything conservative. It was like, well, leave then. Nobody wants you here. You've got no one actually liking you anymore. And Trump's absolutely right that is the reason as to why he ended up going, fundamentally.
Absolutely. I also found it funny that he managed to insert in there his hatred of wind turbines. Like, at every given opportunity, Trump always talks about the windmills. The fact he doesn't even call them wind turbines, he calls them windmills, like, the kind you'd find on a beach somewhere.
Not entirely wrong.
I don't know. It never fails to amuse me. Other things he did discuss, which we don't have clips of, is that how he thought that the Ukraine conflict wouldn't happen under his watch, and that he thought that Biden was complacent and therefore it gave Putin the motivation to do this without retaliation. Also, he said that Kim Jong-un doesn't respect Biden and that he's good pals with him, which is quite funny.
One of the funny things when I was interviewing the Taliban on Independence Day, and I asked them about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, their responses when I asked them about Donald Trump were all negative. It was like, that asshole, he bombed us. He tried to stick around. Whereas Joe Biden, they couldn't have been more positive about for an American president. They were like, oh, well, he did a good thing. He buggered off and let us take over. Fantastic. And it's like, yeah. So, I mean, if that's your geopolitical enemy here, who's frankly quite happy that Joe Biden's in charge, I imagine Putin's guys think the same way, which is, yeah, I don't know. Thanks for being weak, I guess. We'll do what we want.
Joe Biden, endorsed by the Taliban for 2024.
Yeah, literally.
But yes, he also went on and on about how good his golf courses were in Scotland, which I don't think anyone really wanted to know about, but I thought it was funny. But yes, definitely check this out. And
not as good as Kim Jong-un's, though, and Kim Jong-il's. Kim Jong-il, the first time he played golf, he scored 11 holes in one.
He's that good, is he?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I wouldn't want to come up against him in a round of golf.
Wouldn't want to disagree with that fact either in North Korea, so...
But yes, it seems like, at least if Donald Trump wins in 2024, the situation between the UK and the US is going to get a lot better. Obviously, Biden isn't very hospitable to us, and Trump seems to be far friendlier, so it would be in our interest to get a Trump presidency. So please, Trump,
I love it. Biden's like, UK is no longer my best friend. Taliban are now my best friend. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as this premium article on the terminal list and the conversion of James Reese, with an audio track for silver and gold tiers, of course. If you'd like to go and find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.